Tonight, for the first time, the terrorist behind 9/11 goes before a U.S. military court that will decide his fate. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed tells the court he wants to die a martyr. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, financial turbulence for the nation's airlines. That means travelers will face crowded planes, fewer flights, and higher prices. Hateful gossip goes high-tech and online on college campuses.
It hurts when somebody writes stuff like that about you.
And Jeff Greenfield's very personal remembrance of Robert F. Kennedy 40 years later.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. Nearly 7 years after 9/11, the terrorist who says he planned the attacks was brought before a military tribunal today on the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. It was the first court appearance for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed since the CIA captured him while he was sleeping in Pakistan 5 years ago. He and 4 alleged co-conspirators heard the charges against them, charges that could get them the death penalty. Mohammed told the court he wants to die a martyr and plans to represent himself. Our justice correspondent Bob Orr is at Guantanamo. And Bob, it was quite a scene there today.
Katie, there's no doubt about it. This first military court appearance by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was both dramatic and also bizarre. Sitting next to 4 alleged al-Qaeda co-conspirators, the self-proclaimed mastermind of 9/11 said openly in court that he'd been tortured by the U.S., and he called the case against him a sham. It was a surreal reunion of 5 men who the government charges were on the board of directors of al-Qaeda. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, looking dramatically different from the disheveled man in this now infamous mugshot, was clearly in charge. Mohammed, dressed in a white tunic and turban with a flowing 10-inch beard, openly made hand signals and seemed to be directing his co-defendants, who sat single file behind him. Walid bin Attash, known as Khalad, accused of running terror training camps. Ramzi bin al-Shibh, who the government says helped train the 9/11 hijackers. And 2 money men, Ali Abdulaziz Ali and Mustafa Hawsawi, accused of financing the attacks. But Mohammed, educated in the U.S., dominated the courtroom. Chanting verses from the Quran and providing his own English translation, KSM said he only answered to the laws of Allah, and he rejected his American lawyers, saying their President George Bush waged war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they are still killing people there. KSM, who the CIA admits was subjected to waterboarding, questioned the legitimacy of the military hearing. For 5 years they torture, he said. After the torturing, they transfer us to Inquisition land in Guantanamo. The judge warned KSM against representing himself, reminding the accused terror chief that he and his colleagues are charged with killing nearly 3,000 Americans, and they could be sentenced to death. That is what I wish, Mohammed calmly responded. I wish to be martyred for a long time. Co-defendant bin al-Shibh, who tried 4 times to join the 9/11 hijackers in their attacks, echoed that defiance, telling the court with a smile, I've been seeking martyrdom for 5 years. I tried for 9/11 and could not get a visa. If this martyrdom happens today, so be it. The others also followed KSM's lead. Each fired his lawyers, and each condemned the legal process. In nearly perfect English, detainee Aziz Ali put it this way, this government failed to treat me as a human for 5 years. My conscience does not allow me to participate. Some legal critics called the hearing, which has now ended, a complete and utter farce. At a minimum, it was certainly weird. At one point, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, for example, objected to one of the court sketches of him. He said it was an unfair image. The sketch eventually was changed. Katie?
Bob Orr at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Bob, thank you. Turning now to politics, Hillary Clinton's campaign said today she is not actively seeking the vice presidential nomination. And that tops our CBS News Campaign 08 notebook. A senior Clinton staffer told CBS News the VP choice is Barack Obama's and his alone. And, quote, she will do whatever she's asked to do, but the ball is in his court. Obama said today he still hasn't spoken to Clinton. She plans to endorse him on Saturday. As for Bill Clinton, Obama was asked if he plans to call on the former president to help him win in November.
Yes and yes. I think Bill Clinton is an enormous talent, and I would welcome him campaigning for him.
Meanwhile, the Democratic National Committee announced today it will join Obama in refusing to accept donations from Washington lobbyists. And speaking of campaign money, Republican John McCain reported today he raised $21.5 million in May, his best fundraising month yet. In other news, a major shakeup today in the Air Force. 2 men at the top, one civilian, one military, are taking the fall for startling mix-ups involving nuclear weapon systems. David Martin is at the Pentagon.
It was either resign or be fired for the two top leaders of the Air Force. Michael Wynn, the Secretary of the Air Force, and General Michael Mosley, the Chief of Staff, were both forced to quit today by Defense Secretary Gates following two embarrassing incidents of loose nukes.
I believe these actions are required because, first, the focus of the Air Force leadership has drifted with respect to perhaps its most sensitive mission.
Gates acted after reviewing the results of an investigation into a hard-to-believe mix-up in which 4 fuses used on nuclear-armed missiles were accidentally shipped to Taiwan in response to an order for helicopter batteries, and no one realized it for a year and a half.
Rather than an isolated occurrence, the shipment of the 4 forward section assemblies to Taiwan was a symptom of a degradation of the authority, standards of excellence, and technical competence within the nation's ICBM force.
Gates said the missing nose cones involved a chain of failure similar to another hard-to-believe case of loose nukes. In that one, 6 nuclear-armed cruise missiles were accidentally loaded aboard a B-52 bomber and flown across the United States without anyone realizing the error.
This is the first time in memory both the military and civilian chiefs of a service have been fired, and it won't stop there. Several other officers, including some generals, are likely to be relieved of duty or reprimanded. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Now an update on a CBS investigation into air safety. Last month we told you about allegations that a company called AirTech sold substandard materials to virtually every aircraft manufacturer in the world. Well, today, based on our report, House Transportation Committee Chairman James Oberstar called on the Transportation Department to investigate to ensure the traveling public is not being put at risk. Meanwhile, these are turbulent times for the nation's airlines and anyone who flies them or works for them. Continental announced today it plans to cut 3,000 jobs and reduce capacity by 11% because of rising fuel costs. And as our Nancy Cordes reports, Continental is not alone.
The airline industry is in a crisis. Those were the words of Continental's CEO today as the carrier became the latest to slash flights and jobs in the face of fuel costs that have nearly doubled in the past year.
We have to make a dramatic change, and some of those dramatic changes are not going to be terribly popular with our customers.
Changes like eliminating service to secondary airports in major cities, where they often have to compete with low-cost airlines. Delta is pulling out of Islip, New York. Continental is leaving Chicago Midway. American is withdrawing from Oakland, California's airport, which is now putting plans for a third terminal on hold.
We've seen airlines either go out of business due to bankruptcy. They have reduced their service here, or some of them are just completely pulling out of Oakland.
And even those low-cost airlines aren't low fuel. JetBlue, AirTran, and Southwest have all deferred delivery of dozens of new planes.
I would drive rather than fly at this point.
Vacationers may be hardest hit as carriers yank bargain flights to popular tourist destinations like Las Vegas, Orlando, and Honolulu. And while the major airlines have already raised fares 12 times this year, industry analysts say steeper hikes are still to come.
I would say 20-25% higher is not impossible and probably likely.
Just in the next few months?
Well, by the end of the summer, heading toward the fall season.
If there is a silver lining here, it is that fewer flights means less congestion on the runway, and hence, Katie, fewer delays.
Nancy Cordes. Thank you, Nancy. And rising fuel prices are setting off protests all around the world. In Britain today, motorcycle owners led a demonstration that tied up traffic on a major highway. And in India, protesters turned out across the country blaming the government for recent price hikes. Here at home, the Fed took another step toward cleaning up the mortgage mess, approving Bank of America's bid to buy the troubled lender, Countrywide Financial. There is much more CBS News ahead this Thursday. We'll remember Robert F. Kennedy through the eyes of a man who worked with him and now works with us. But up next, gossip websites are a huge hit at colleges. But what happens when malicious rumors are posted for all to see?